Hello and welcome to today's podcast, Ecosystems and Innovation, part of our Industry 4 Ready podcast series. Today we're talking about ecosystems, what they are and how they drive greater collaboration, can help support innovation, drive industry competitiveness and contribute to sustainability. I'm your host, Nick Davis, Industry 4 leader for Deloitte in the UK. According to recent research between ourselves and MAPI, accelerating smart manufacturing, ecosystems are key to manufacturers driving benefits around time to market, introducing new channels for products, and reducing operational costs. To share their views on how smart manufacturing ecosystems comprising industry, government, academia, and others are teaming to help drive digital innovation, I am delighted to be joined by Rab Scott and Stephen Laaper. Perhaps we can start with a few introductions. Rab, please tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're passionate about all things digital.
Nick, great to be here today and thanks for the invitation. My name's Rab Scott. I am Head of Digital at the University of Sheffield's Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre, which is part of the UK's High Value Manufacturing Catapult translational research network, very much looking at advanced manufacturing. How did I get into this? Well, I've had a slightly strange journey to get here. I've actually got a PhD in geology. Not many people know that. But what that meant I had to be able to do was to look at a geological map, which is a flat two-dimensional colored piece of paper quite often, and project that into 3D. So it's about visualization. It's about that transition from 2D into 3D, and then from 3D into 4D, because it changes over time. Okay, we're talking geological time. But then that just got me looking at other forms of visualization. So I actually started in VR last century. In the late 90s, I was doing VR and the application of VR in the industrial space, and then AR came along, and then we started bringing in data streams from IoT devices. And really, that's where we are today with digital manufacturing. It's about access to data, visualization of data, exposing that data, and making better decisions more quickly. The whole Industry 4 thing.
Fantastic. And I love the crossover there from Rab, from your geology background as well. Stephen, perhaps a brief introduction for yourself and what excites you about smart factories.
Hello, Nick. Yep, it's my pleasure to be joining you and Rab today. As mentioned, Stephen Laaper here. I am Deloitte's Smart Factory leader based in Boston, Massachusetts. And I've spent my career really operating at the intersection of operations and technology. And it's exciting to see how all of the different technologies, advancements in technologies, the scale that is achievable with these different technologies are really powering the future competitiveness of manufacturing. And much of that is coming together in the likes of Smart Factory and Industry 4.0. It's incredible on that journey, some of the new capabilities that are required, but also the fundamentals of how those are integrated into lean manufacturing, and increasingly how companies are trying to adopt ecosystems to drive that competitiveness. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you, Stephen. It's great to have you both join. Stephen, perhaps we could start off with a bit of a definition, and also why does this matter? What is an ecosystem, and why should manufacturers be thinking about their ecosystem nowadays?
Yeah, absolutely. Ecosystems are becoming increasingly important as we think about how companies are addressing competitiveness or new capabilities that they're bringing into their operations or bringing to market. Now, I think it's really important to identify that an ecosystem is differentiated from that of a typical vendor relationship. Usually a vendor relationship is very much a two-way relationship between a company, an entity, and someone providing services, a product, or a capability of some sort. But when we look at ecosystems, this is now a multimodal or a multi-organizational arrangement that is created to drive that same competitiveness, those same new capabilities, and in many ways, driving capabilities that were unattainable by an individual organization or that traditional kind of vendor two-way relationship. When we think about what the real goal and what the real outcome of this multimodal arrangement, it really starts to become that of recombinant innovation. How are we able to take the innovations, the accelerations, and the capabilities that are developed by one organization and combine them with those innovations and capabilities of another, and then do it again and again? This is a really important part of why an ecosystem is so powerful, but it's really important to identify that success can only be achieved when there is aligned incentives across that collection of organizations in the ecosystem.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. One of the things I find quite interesting about the ecosystems that are now emerging, Rab, is the collaboration across academia, industry, government bodies, and others as well. I know you're at the heart of a number of kind of very important UK initiatives around there through your role at the Digital Catapult and the High Value Manufacturing Catapult here in the UK. Can you tell us a little bit more about the innovation hub that I know you're involved with?
Smart manufacturing is about the digital community coming to the manufacturing community, but we have a problem there, and that is the digital community and the manufacturing community live at different ends of the day. You know, the manufacturers are getting up and a lot of the digital community are going to bed. They wear different clothes, they speak a different language. So who's acting as the convener to bring these communities together? Because without bringing the disparate communities together into this ecosystem network, we're never going to get them talking. We're not going to be able to realize the true value that smart factories and smart manufacturing could actually realize for the UK and for the global manufacturing community. But you've got to have a place to do it. And that place to do it has got to be open, it's got to be agnostic, it's got to be accessible. People have got to be able to go there and try before they buy, to de-risk their future investments. And that's what the innovation hubs are about. It's really about being a demonstration site, but then also being a test bed site so that the digital community can come and prove out their offerings in a pseudo manufacturing domain. But then it's also a sandpit environment where the manufacturers can test those solutions. And you've really got to bring all these together, and it's got to be relevant, it's got to be industrially relevant, and actually make sense to those parts of the ecosystem that are coming together.
Thanks, Rab. I think, Stephen, I know that some of our Deloitte research with MAPI, for example, has really highlighted that manufacturers see ecosystems as being hugely valuable to their future and their competitiveness and so on. Let's just make this real for a moment. Can you perhaps share an example of where you've seen a great ecosystem in action?
Yes, Nick, absolutely. And as you correctly point out, our research that we've done in conjunction with MAPI has pointed out that a significant number of manufacturers, as you highlighted, 85%, believe that ecosystems are really a critical part of their future and how they are achieving competitiveness. I think probably one of the best examples we've seen of this is with a consumer product company here in the United States. And this particular organization was challenged with really improving their material efficiency in their manufacturing operations. They had tried many different kind of traditional kind of innovation approaches, both internal and external, with parties, which I would describe very much in that traditional kind of two entity relationships, typical vendor relationships or relationships with academia. They needed a breakthrough. And the way they created this breakthrough was by convening an ecosystem. It included themselves as the manufacturer, their direct material suppliers, a university innovation lab, as well as a technology partner. Each part of the ecosystem was able to bring something different, unique, and bring a set of capabilities that were able for them to be able to drive to a outcome that would have been unachievable with any one of those relationships at being the primary relationship. In this particular example, they did achieve a level of material consumption efficiency in their manufacturing operations that was groundbreaking. It reshaped the competitive landscape in their business and how they went to market. One of the really, really important parts of that Rob had mentioned, and also ties back into one of my previous comments in terms of how does this become successful, is that of the convener and the incentives. The role of the convener is so critical as it relates to how the ecosystem comes together. the ability to bring together not only a number of different components across academia, across technology partners, across vendors, manufacturers is challenging, but also to bring the right components together. And that's critical. And that's often the role of the convener of the ecosystem. Consistent with that, the role of the convener is critical in aligning the incentives across those organizations, and it is a critical to success factor in a successful ecosystem.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. I do want to move on to a slightly different topic as well, Rab. So there is a role that, as you yourself exemplify around and are involved with various different networks and ecosystems involving government. And it strikes me that as well as some of the direct benefits for manufacturers themselves, there is a broader agenda here where government, for example, is fostering, real purpose around fostering ecosystems with digital manufacturers and so on. If we take something like, I don't know, a topic like decarbonisation, have you seen kind of any kind of particular areas of interest of ecosystems tackling things like topics like the energy transition?
Absolutely, Nick, because as we head towards net zero, as we head towards the future and improved energy production and efficiencies, you can't just do it in isolation. You've got to look at both the energy producers, the energy consumers, and the energy disposers. And it may seem strange, what's an energy disposer? Well, that's an end user that uses energy without putting anything back in. But by connecting all those components together, using the sort of smart technologies that we're seeing in smart factories today, you can start looking at bi-directional interfaces between each of those components. So you can actually look at the manufacturing base optimizing the use of their energy. So there's actually less demand on the energy producers, and that's optimized and that's balanced. And actually, what we're also seeing is the ability of the manufacturers to feed back into the energy producers, and then the end users, the consumers, the end consumers, actually feeding back to the manufacturers. So it actually is not a series of siloed entities that are doing just a transactional interface, but it becomes a symbiotic relationship across the whole ecosystem. And we're seeing that in the nuclear sector, you're seeing it in the wind sector, and we're beginning to see it more and more in the hydrogen sector. And things like using excess power from nuclear power plants to actually produce hydrogen. But what's the point in doing that if you haven't got the distribution networks and you haven't got the demand signals coming from industry, so you know where you need to do this? And this is what the smart manufacturing, smart factory, whole industry 4 movement is doing. It's giving transparency of provision and demand and the ability to balance that across this ecosystem.
Thanks, Rob. Now, Stephen, we've talked a little bit about manufacturers themselves. We've talked about governments and their interest in these ecosystems. It would be remiss of us not to talk a little bit about the outstanding work that you've been doing with Wichita State University as an academic institution around innovation for smart manufacturing. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, Nick, absolutely. So you mentioned our collaboration with Wichita State University. This is the latest in our global network of experience centers dedicated to digital and smart manufacturing. Our collaboration with Wichita State University is housed in our very own smart factory that we have purpose-built on the Innovation Campus. Now, the Innovation Campus at Wichita State University in itself is constructing that of an ecosystem. Organizations have invested into constructing innovation centers, operation centers, ideation centers on this innovation campus, and in many cases is able to tap into not only the rich and deep resources from the university, but also those other co-participants on the innovation campus. Within our smart factory, we will have a fully operational production line where we are able to demonstrate the latest and most impactful innovations in manufacturing, as well as show how the ecosystem comes to life in a very, very tangible and practical manner. In our smart factory, in addition to the manufacturing line, we will actually house a number of ecosystem partners in the building with us co-ideating and developing solutions on the manufacturing shop floor. This is a critical example of how innovation in the ecosystem will happen in real time in the manufacturing environment on the likes of innovation campuses such as that at Wichita State University.
Fantastic. Really exciting to hear how things are progressing there, Stephen. And I know, Rab, we first met in the context of the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre here in the UK, with quite a similar sort of context. But with the footprint, for example, that you've seen grow in Sheffield here in the UK around the AMRC, perhaps you could share with us some an example about the collaboration you've seen that's been a success from that innovation centre here in the UK.
Well, all I can hope is that the Wichita State University one has the success that we have had already. And, Stephen, I need to get you over there. I need to show you what we've done. We started off with 8 people in 2001. As the AMRC, we've now got over 600 people. But more importantly than that, we have actually created the focal point for a whole advanced manufacturing park. It's part of the International Global Innovation Districts, and there are now more people employed on our advanced manufacturing park these days, which was a brownfield site, than there were when it was an old coal mining site. That's impact, because that is impact for the region and for the population. But we've also attracted the best in the world in terms of manufacturing. So onto that advanced manufacturing park, we've now got the likes of Rolls-Royce. We've got Boeing. Their only European manufacturing facility is sited next to our facility because they want to be close to the innovators. We've got the likes of McLaren Automotive, who have reshored their carbon fiber monocoque production from Europe to Sheffield, not well known for car manufacturing, but we were able to show them how to automate processes they previously thought were unautomatable, which improves their quality, it improves their productivity, and improves their bottom line. And it's really about having a diverse community of all parts of the ecosystem. So it's not just the tier ones, it's the whole supply chain across a number of different organizations that are coming together. But at the core of that is this academic-led but industrially relevant research and innovation center. People want to be beside the exciting cutting-edge parts of that innovation cycle. And I'd like to think that that's what we provide in South Yorkshire.
Fantastic. There's one final dimension to ecosystems, building on the various different players that we've considered to date, Rab. Perhaps as a final question, which is, I know you have a passion for supporting small and medium-sized businesses in industry as well as some of the big corporate players that you've mentioned. Perhaps tell us a little bit about that before we wrap up as well, please.
Well, it's quite interesting. The OEMs are quite often considered the innovation engines, the people that make the changes. And to some extent they are, but actually these days, SMEs have quite often got a level of autonomy that the OEMs don't have, especially in their IT systems. And IT systems are so critical in smart factories and smart manufacturing because it's where IT and OT come together. So that SMEs can really innovate and adopt at a pace that large OEMs can't. They might not be able to do it at scale that OEMs can, but they can do it at a pace that they can't. So what we've seen 100-year-old companies that have been in a traditional hand tool, handcraft environment, suddenly embracing things like robotics and automation. And what that embracing of robotics and automation has done is exactly what Deloitte's report in 2015 from brawn to brains actually identified, that this level of automation isn't about displacing jobs. It's about displacing low value jobs and allowing the people that have been displaced to actually do higher value activities. So we're seeing automation creating higher value jobs, even within the SME community.
Fantastic. You touched on robotics and you've just reminded me, I've seen a great bit of a teaser video, Stephen, with 2 very close robotic canine friends I believe, at Wichita State University. In terms of robotic dogs, Rab, if you were to teach an old dog new robotic tricks, what would it be?
Wow. I think that given the current climate, I would try and create a COVID-19 sniffer dog. It would give a whole new meaning to the word fetch, but hopefully it would get us out of the hole that we're in at the moment.
Fantastic, Rab. Stephen, I believe these are your two pet robotic dogs. Do you want to just explain a little bit what that's about and how what trick would you teach those dogs?
Yes, Nick, you're right. Over COVID, I did have the opportunity to adopt, or I shall say house, two of the robotic mobility platforms from Boston Dynamics. We have affectionately named them Spot and Rivet. After having the family also contribute to some unique ideas on what might be most useful for Spot and Rivet, the family came to a conclusion that actually laundry and folding the laundry would be the best possible trick. In addition to all of the industrial uses, laundry is where we landed.
Who would have thought? Well, thank you, Stephen, and thank you both for joining me on today's podcast. Thank you for being my guest and sharing those wonderful insights. For those listening, thanks for listening, and please do share any feedback to our podcast online. If you'd like to take a closer read of our Accelerating Smart Manufacturing report with MAPI, please just go to our website, deloitte.co.uk. I look forward to sharing and discussing more Industry 4 topics in future as part of our Industry 4 Ready podcast series. Have a good day.